I would like to invite to the stage the Linginfelter brothers. Bill Linginfelter, come on up, Bill. Bill, as I mentioned, is the president of the Georgia area of Regions Bank. Thank you, Bill. Hank Linginfelter, our CEO of Atlanta Gaslight Company. And the great Danny Linginfelter. All right, a hug. Alumni from South Georgia Technical College. And so, remind me, Hank and Bill, where did you graduate from?
I graduated from Georgia Tech.
Okay.
And then went to grad school at Georgia State for MBA.
Wonderful.
And I graduated from the University of Georgia.
And Danny, where did you graduate from?
South Georgia Technical College down there.
So we are very proud of all three of you, and really, again, wanted to just talk about success and how you can receive that through higher education. And I have to say, knowing y'all, also through hard work. But I think let's back up a couple of years, and let's talk about how you, what your K through 12 experience was, maybe your high school experience, and what you all were thinking about as you transitioned into higher education and what that decision process was like for each one of you.
I'll start because I'm the oldest, can't you tell? Well, all of us were fortunate enough that our dad's career took us to St. Simon's. That's where we went through elementary school and through high school. He was transferred when our two youngest brothers were in high school, so Hank and Matt finished in Rome. Danny and I finished at Glen Academy in Brunswick. And the whole process was great. I mean, how could you beat living on an island, and especially in the Golden Isles of Georgia? Wonderful place to be from, lots to do. And in those days, of course, you could go anywhere and your mother didn't worry. I mean, it was out of the house at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I guess they would worry if you didn't show up by 7 o'clock that night, but we always managed to make it home. Good quality of life. And you wanted to talk about how I ended up at Georgia, maybe? You know, it's so different than it is today. I think I applied on Monday and heard on Friday that I was in. And not because I had straight A's, but because, you know, it was just, we didn't have the Hope Scholarship. And I looked back, because our parents are now deceased, and for some reason I ended up with the checkbooks from that era, and I paid almost the same amount of money for my son to go to Georgia, and he graduated last spring, than that my dad paid for me because of that Hope Scholarship. I couldn't believe it. I kept thinking, now you have to take out all the fees and stuff, but if you look at the straight tuition, it's amazing how close they were, 40 years apart.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Danny, what was your decision like?
I wish I could tell you, sitting here, that I knew all my life I wanted to be an aircraft mechanic, and I just walked right into South Georgia Technical, but that's not exactly the way it happened. I remember a conversation I had with my father between my junior and senior year, and he said, I was doing something, and he said, you know, you're going into your senior year, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, you need to start thinking about it. And he kept pestering me about it, and I kept blowing him off. And finally I said, you know, Dad, I'm a good guy. I'm a good old boy. And he said, son, there's not any demand for good old boys. I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. So I defaulted to Brunswick Junior College at the time and went for a year, and I had a couple of jobs, was making a lot of money, having a lot of fun, living at home. I mean, it was just great, but my grades just stunk. And so my mother came to me at some point, and she had 4 brochures for the military, and then she had the Technical Colleges of Georgia list, and she said, take your choice. What's it going to be? But you're not going to live at home with 2 jobs and a lot of money in your pocket and just acting up. And so I chose South Georgia Technical College and got into the aviation program. We had an uncle that was a Navy pilot. He was a great, I really had a lot of esteem for him, and so he kind of inspired me to go with that particular course. So that's how I ended up at South Georgia Tech. I wish I had a better story, but that's pretty much it, how it went.
Well, listening to you today and hearing you earlier, it sounds to me like you had a story of great parents who wanted to see you succeed, and were always looking out for you. And so that's something that we know many of our students have, and then we know that there are other students out there in Georgia that don't have that, and we all try to step up to be that person, or the counselor also to be that individual.
Very, very important. This is one factor. You know, Hank was so much smarter than the rest of us, and Bill would just flat out work you. And so there I was, and Bill's working massive math problems. Wanted an adding machine for Christmas when he was 10.
That's true.
Hank was over in his own world. We didn't know if he was a genius or challenged for a while, but he was so much smarter than we were. But my parents would look at Bill, and then they'd look at Hank, and then they'd look at me. And they'd kind of go, and I'd kind of go, you made me, I don't know what to tell you. I am a product of you, so, but anyway, that's kind of how I ended up there.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we know about Georgia students, is that they are all different, right? We want to do the most that we can. You've probably heard us talk about Move On When Ready and trying to get our high school students to kind of really see what is a bit of interest so that they can go into college a little earlier and experience that. And we hope that that's helping a little bit in guiding that process. But it's always good to have parents that know. So did they always know you were going to Georgia Tech?
Well, I do have a T-shirt from when I was about 10 or 11 that had Property of Georgia Tech on it. And that was really largely because our dad played football for Georgia Tech in the 1950s. He had a full scholarship to Georgia Tech, came from the hills of Tennessee. He was just a country boy, and Georgia Tech changed his life. He played for Bobby Dodd, and he went from being a mountain boy to kind of a city boy pretty fast at Georgia Tech. And it was great to have really good parents, very strong leaders for the four of us, all four brothers. And I remember my senior year, I'd done fine in school, I was making good grades, and my dad said, you need to really think about challenging yourself. And he gave me this pep talk about how great Georgia Tech was. And we had been to football games and had fun. And I was starting to work on it.
And I'd been the black sheep who just disappointed him greatly.
No, he loved that Bill went to Georgia. He thought that was awesome. He should have never taken him to the Georgia-Florida games. That's what really did it for him.
That's probably true.
We lived down there. It was easy to get to them. But he was really pitching hard. And my mom said, are you just going to tell your dad or not that you don't want to go there? And I said, well, it's starting to work on me. I think it sounds pretty good. So I loved math. I loved science. I thought Georgia Tech was neat. And so it's kind of like Bill. I applied and got in. And today I wouldn't have a prayer of getting in. But it's just an awesome school. We're so lucky that in Georgia you have this wide of a variety of options. And then the fourth brother, Matt, went to Kennesaw State, so he's even another breed of Linginfelter with a different focus. But that's how I ended up there, and glad I went.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And so how do you think your education individually prepared you for the career that you would have?
Well, it's like anything. College prepares you for life. You get a great education. I majored in accounting, never wanted to be a CPA. And I was very fortunate that it was just a 4-year program back then, because I was so tired after the 4th year I was ready to go. But the financial part of that process, of that academic program, really prepared me. I was going to do banking for a year and go to law school, and fell in love with it. It kept getting promoted, and I just never looked back. But that was a great major to have for what I do. And of course, if I'd come along a little bit later, who knows? Because the state and the university took that accounting program, and it's a great program today. It was back then, but it's, nationally ranked.
And then you went on to additional banking schools.
I went to the University of Virginia's commercial banking school for 2 sessions and did what they call the Graduate School of Banking of the South at LSU in Baton Rouge, and did that too. And you're always getting educated in banking, so I've done a lot of this, but those were 2 of the best.
Danny, you mentioned when we spoke over the phone about your instructor and how your specific instructor impacted you. I assume you had more than one. Did you only have one instructor while you were there? You
No,
had
no, I had two.
But you had two whole instructors during your time. But tell us, since you only had two, tell them about both of us.
They were probably, their impact is still on me today, what I learned from there. I thought I would breeze over to Americus and play around for a couple of years, and I found out real quick that the business I'd chosen was deadly serious. And the minute I sat down in the class with these two guys, one of them was Frank Gassett, the other was Tom Munn. I think Tom Munn is now deceased, but I think Frank Gassett's still alive. And he took aviation maintenance very, very seriously, and he impressed that upon all of us, starting with being around airplanes and how unsafe it is. And he had a bunch of kids running around there like me, who'd been on the beach most of their life, walking around propellers and dangerous things. And he got it across to us real quick. That if you're going to be around airplanes, you're going to have to watch yourself, you're going to get hurt. And that has never changed. 37 years in this business, if you're not watching what you're doing, and I had the unfortunate circumstances that since I've been in the business to have some fatalities that I've had to deal with. But his words have always rung back. When you're around airplanes, you best be on your best behavior, because you can get yourself hurt. So safety, the second thing they taught us was compliance. If the book tells you to do it this way, that's the way you're going to do it. And if you don't have the fortitude and the integrity to do that, you've picked the wrong field. And that's been true all the way through everything I've done. So those guys were very influential on me from the beginning. I can't say enough about them. What I learned was fantastic.
So how did you go from graduation at South Georgia Tech? You told me the license was the most important piece that you had. But how did you go from there to, was Delta your first job?
I actually was dying to get on with a little carrier called Xantop, and they just wouldn't hire me because I didn't have any experience. They only wanted experience. So I tapped on the door at Southern Airways, what was then Southern Airways, which turned out to be Northwest later on, and they weren't hiring, so really Delta was my third choice. I hate to say that, but yes, it was my first job. And, who would have thought it, some 30 years later, we bought Northwest, so I could have been in the same place anyway, no matter what. But Delta turned out to be just the right fit for me, and it really worked out well. Now, the instructors at the school spent a lot of time talking about, what kind of life you were going to have, what kind of future you could expect with an airline, and what you could expect going out on your own, in other words, working on small private airplanes. Two different ball games. And they really spent a lot of time explaining that to us. If you're going to work on the small airplanes and general aviation, you're going to struggle. It's going to be hard work. You better love it. Mm-hmm. And they said with the airlines, a lot more, usually a lot more secure, better benefits, but they want blood. You got to give up your life to a certain extent. And they were absolutely dead on. So.
Well, one of the things that you've been telling us in regards to, I've heard you say instructors. What we continuously hear is the enjoyment, the success of our students always relates back to their instructor in the classroom. And so if you had, you have the leadership of the Technical College System of Georgia here, you have your presidents, your faculty and your staff from the colleges, the leadership of those colleges, the system office staff that's looking at curriculum. If you had any suggestions for us in regards to our instructors, what would you say to us?
Without a doubt, it would be accountability, and here's why. And I think about this all the time. We haven't talked about this, but it's one of the things I do think about. And the reason I wasn't successful in a traditional college, there was no accountability. The professors in the college classes I attended didn't care if I was there or not. The requirement at the technical school to go and be able to test for your license and then do the, besides the written, the oral and the practical portions of your license required a certain amount of hours. You had to be there. In fact, I wasn't perfect and ended up staying at South Georgia Tech for an extra 3 weeks making up time because I was bad to cut out on a Friday or mosey in a little bit late on a Monday. So the instructors really drove accountability, and you're not going to get better preparation for the workforce than being held accountable for what you do. Now, I can't speak to all the different skills that the technical colleges offer. I just know that in the program I was in, they were very serious about accountability. We were required by the federal government to have so many hours, so we were there. And if we weren't there, we made it up.
Wonderful. one of the things that I have learned since coming on with the Technical College System of Georgia is we actually have basically a workplace ethics requirement within our courses. Dr. Tina Anderson shared that with me at the beginning, and I look at that because it's literally a place where we can provide employers basically a track record of how our students hopefully will perform when they're actually in the workplace. So we know that our instructors, our colleges are making sure that our students understand that when they go into the workplace, the soft skills as well as the work ethic that they will need to be successful. When I look at the three of you, I also notice that you represent some of our great allied companies in Georgia. We know, having worked with the Department of Economic Development with the Georgia allies, those private companies that come together and team with the state to really promote business growth in Georgia, which is also hinges on workforce development. AGL, Regions, you are always there at the table, and Danny Gulfstream may not necessarily be an allies member, but as you know, the legal counsel and Jay Neely serves as the Department of Economic Development's chairman of that board. And so you represent three companies now that you are our top business allies. You are some of our top employers. So when you look to receive our students, what are you seeing? And I say not only technical college students, but university systems. When you see the new students coming into your workforce, what are you seeing? Are you happy? What can we do to improve it?
Well, I'll start with that. And what we're seeing is we hire new people, young people, just out of college, technical college or university. And I'm very encouraged by this. I see young people who are very interested in working. We have a number of engineers in our company who went to places like either Georgia Tech or Auburn or Clemson or even Southern Tech, which is now part of Kennesaw State, I guess. Mm-hmm. They want to work. And so if I go back half a generation ahead of those people, a lot of those folks at 5 o'clock, they're heading for the door. This new group, they are staying. If they have meaningful work, and we're doing a lot of big projects in our company, a lot of new pipeline expansions and new projects, they're happy to have meaningful work. And if it's meaningful, they'll work. And so I'm very encouraged. I worry sometimes about the next generation, since I have a couple of them in my house right now. But I'm encouraged to see people who are willing to work, but also have great skills that they're bringing to the table to do a good job for a company like ours.
Wonderful, wonderful. What do you see, Bill?
I would agree. I think you hear an awful lot about millennials mm-hmm. and how they are different. They do things, they think a little bit differently, they use different devices and so forth, but really their values are pretty good mm-hmm. and strong, and they do have a good work ethic, a very strong work ethic. I think probably in my role as a leader in my company, I spend a bit more time with that age group than maybe I would have 10 years ago or 5 or even 20 whatever years ago. You weren't exactly not welcome back then, but they didn't need you or didn't have to see you. This group kind of wants to be visible and and it's not I need to get ahead kind of thing. It's as Hank said, I want my life and my work to be meaningful. And if you're around, that must mean it's meaningful, or it helps me know it's meaningful. Mm-hmm. And there's a difference. They are so much better prepared and so much more educated, not in the degree sense, but in the academic sense. They know a whole lot more coming out. And you mentioned the allies, and I think the reason that we personally feel so involved is that we had that example set for us by both our parents. And they didn't talk about it, or we didn't get around the dinner table and go, I volunteered here today, They just led by example, and both of our parents were very involved in Boys and Girls Club and Kiwanis and Rotary, and it just was an example thing. Our dad was, it's really funny, I said this at Eggs and Issues, for those of you who kind of may remember this. He was involved with the State Chamber of Commerce 38 or 39 or 40 years ago, and here we both are, Hank and I anyway, involved, and we all do something to give back. And it goes back to that example. And not everybody has our parents did die fairly young. Hank had just finished high school, and Matt was still in high school when we lost our dad. And then 5 or 6 years, one died at 45 and the other at 51. So they were fairly young, but they had a lasting impression on us. And part of it was just, I wish I were that kind of parent.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Me too.
And I know not everybody has that privilege growing up, and that's why it's so important that they get it somewhere along the way. And it's hard to get. Hank talked about it, Danny talked about his college experience. You're just sort of thrown in there in a lot of ways, and you sink or swim. But I'm telling you right now, the smart kid goes and finds that professor or goes and finds that university person who can help them. And they can, because they're there, you just have to know where to find them. And I like the kind of experience Danny really had, which I didn't know about till today, with his instructors. Having that kind of mentor to help you figure it out is just so vital and important. And if you don't have that at home, boy, it just makes a huge difference if you get it in your technical school or your college, coming along. It makes all the difference in the world.
I love y'all's story because in that time frame where your father passed away, your mother even stepped up more than she had, right, in regards to your education decisions or kind of helping you kind of see through those educational decisions. And I've heard y'all talk about that, and I think those are impressive as well. And it just speaks, y'all have got so many stories in regards to education, and maybe it's because there are 4 of you, there are more stories to be told, but we really appreciate you sharing yours with us today. We're proponents of one another, the University System of Georgia, the Technical College System of Georgia, and we preach. We're obviously preaching to the choir today, right? But we just preach all of the higher education opportunities in Georgia. And so to know that the Linginfelters, the Linginfelter family that has had, like you said, 40 years ago, has had such an impact on Georgia, and today you all have such an impact on Georgia. And when I think about it, from the coast all the way to the mountains, right in the middle of metro Atlanta, you're part of the good stuff that Georgia's made of. And so to have you represent the Technical College System of Georgia and the University System of Georgia, we're very proud. And so thank you for sharing with us, and thank you for spending your time today.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have been asked.
Well, before we wrap up, I need to apologize publicly to President Moorhead, and also to President Peterson for not inviting them today. I should have definitely done that. We do have this on film. I know that they're going to want to hear it, right? We'll send it their way. But we have some exciting news in South Georgia. At South Georgia Technical College, you've probably already heard, we have a new president there, Sparky Reeves, who was the president there for many years, right, and who served South Georgia Technical College and that community so well and continues to be an incredible member of that society. He retired last year. He's president emeritus and still has an impact there, but we have a brand new president, and his name is Dr. John Watford. And John, do you mind coming up and joining us? Let me tell you about this special team. Talking about how a family can stick together. South Georgia Technical College has really stuck together over the last couple of years. Sparky Reeves, the president there, had a heart attack about this time last year, was it? And after, of course, the female basketball team was the national champions. Yeah, right. Then he had a little episode, and so during that time period of his recovery, this entire South Georgia Technical College team, they really stuck together. So my guess is they are still the college that you experienced. But I wanted you to meet the new president of South Georgia Technical College, Dr. John Watford.
Such a pleasure to meet you. Nice to see you.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
If I could, Dan, we're proud of all of our graduates, but we're especially proud of you. And we have a book with a history of our college and a little gift bag that has some special South Georgia Tech goodies in it we'd like for you to have. And, of course, you're always welcome on our campus. We'd love you to have you come back and visit. And maybe we could get Mr. Gassett to come back and spend some time with you as well.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, to the Linginfelters, my dear friends, I hope everyone's new dear friends, thank you very much for spending your time with us. Y'all are more than welcome to stay with us and hear the state of the technical college system, the great news coming out of the University System of Georgia. Thank you for being with us. You're always welcome with us. We are going to be, we're going to be choosing our goal student of the year, our #1 technical college system of Georgia student. And we're going to provide them with a Kia this week, and they're going to drive off in it.
Oh, fun.
But if I can just take the liberty, since I'm commissioner, I'm going to call you this week's Alumni of the Year for the Technical College System of Georgia, Mr. Danny Linginfelter.
Thank you. Thank you.